What's up guys, it's Topsy, and here we are once again discussing what if Duelist Kingdom had a SpeedDuel set. And for today's video, we are going to be covering Seto Kaiba himself. And you know what, it's about time our boy finally got a true blue eye strategy. And that's exactly what I ended up doing for him in today's video. But before we can get into actually breaking down the strategy and going over every single card, I would like to ask you guys to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to see if I can't get this channel to 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and I cannot do it without your guys' help. As always guys, any support you guys leave behind is very much appreciated, and thank you very much. But with that being said, let's get started. Okay then, so here we have Kaiba's deck, and as you can see there is a lot going on, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I wanted to go ahead and make Seto a true blue eyes white dragon deck because let's face it, this is one of the most iconic cards, if not the most iconic card in almost all of Duel Monsters. Especially when we're talking about Kaiba, this is his ace monster. And I feel like throughout the years in all the product that he's been included, he's never truly gotten a good rendition of a blue eye strategy. And I do hope that I ended up like meeting that standard that I set for myself. So before we can actually break down the strategy and what exactly we're trying to do in this deck, let's go ahead and take a quick look at each of the skills that I ended up making for him. Starting off with the skill you're expected to play from this set. So that being Ultimate Creature of Destruction. And it reads, target one fusion summoned blue eyes ultimate dragon you control. This turn it can make a second and third attack during the battle phase. Also when it attacks, your opponent's cards and effects can't be activated until the end of the damage step. This skill can only be used once per duel. And yeah, so this skill is awesome. I like it a ton. It makes Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon feel worthwhile bringing out. And even if you were able to cheat out this card, this skill doesn't allow you to use the effect unless you properly fusion summoned it. So I feel like that's one of the neat ways that I ended up balancing it. And not only that, but it essentially treats Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon like an Ancient Gear Golem, in the sense that it's not able to be reacted during the damage step specifically. So I feel like all those aspects make it into like a really cool and interesting card, and because it's ultimate Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, bringing it out it's not that easy, so giving it a powerful effect like this that only can be used once per duel seems really fair and really strong. So I don't know, I like it a lot. I think it's a balanced way of incorporating a strong skill like this. The next skill up is Draconic Reincarnation, and this is another interesting skill that I ended up making for Kaiba. So this skill reads, once per duel during your main phase, you can send one level 8 or higher dragon type monster from your hand to the graveyard. Then add one level 4 or lower dragon type monster or spellcaster type monster from your graveyard to your hand. And this is another skill that I actually quite like a lot for Kaiba as well. Because one of the interesting things about Kaiba is that a lot of his monsters actually end up being either spellcasters or dragons. So all these cards really synergize with them, and especially when you take a look at all the cards that I end up giving him for the main deck. And being able to send that Blue Eyes White Dragon to the graveyard is also another really important part of this skill. Since this is one of the main ways we're going to be utilizing to fusion summon Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, but we'll get to that later on when we're actually breaking down the deck itself. I feel like as a whole, this skill is really neat and very versatile because it allows you to recycle one card in the graveyard, and it's fairly balanced in the sense that you do have to pitch up Blue Eyes, and it doesn't summon the monster to the field, instead it adds it to your hand, so there's more versatility and it's still not giving you too much advantage, I guess. So I personally really like both skills for Kaiba. They're really fun, really interesting, and quite powerful. Very fitting for a character like Kaiba himself. Alright then, so now that we ended up breaking down each of the skills for Kaiba, it's about time we start breaking down the actual deck in itself. And the first thing you'll notice is that we have 3 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon in the main deck. And I know this seems a bit weird because we normally do not see this in SpeedDuel products. Most of the time whenever a card has multiple copies of anything, it's usually only ever 2. But in rare occasions we do get a playset of 3. So doing this for Kaiba seems pretty on par with that. And not only that, but as I mentioned earlier, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is the ace monster of this deck, so at 3 it's the bare minimum we need in order to make it. Moving on, another card that we're going to see here is White Stone of Legend. And this card is probably one of the most balanced Blue Eyes support cards that we can add to the deck. Even though it is a tuner, I don't think it matters too much just because It doesn't special summon itself, we don't have synchros, but the main reason we want this card is because it gives us access to our Blue Eyes White Dragon a lot easier, and if we want to fusion summon it, we need to get access to this card. I feel like as the power level goes, it's fitting for the game. Next card up is Kaiba Man, and even though Kaiba never actually played this card just seems so Kaiba. Like, it's very much in character for him to play a card like this. Him being so egocentric, so I feel like the card fits really well. Also, it's bringing out our Blue Eyes White Dragon to the field, and also, of course, it's a card that's already in the game, so you know what, we might as well add it to Kaiba's collection. Alright then, so next card up is Dictator of Dragons, and essentially what I ended up doing here is that instead of just putting the bland and boring choice of Lord of Dragons in the deck, I instead opted to give him an evolved form of it. So what this card does is that while on, it has a special summoning condition where you can send a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the hand or deck to the graveyard in order to summon itself, but on field it also has a couple effects. The first one being that on field, while you control another Blue Eyes White Dragon, your opponent isn't able to choose its own attack targets. Instead, you get to choose what your opponent attacks. So it's like an interesting way of protecting itself on field and forcing your opponent to attack that Blue Eyes White Dragon. So that's kind of an interesting effect. The other effect is probably the one that's a little more scary, I guess, because it's able to send a Blue Eyes card from your hand to the graveyard in order to summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the grave. And the main reason why I think this effect isn't too bad is that there isn't that many Blue Eyes cards in the game. There's very, very few, and it might honestly just be Blue Eyes White Dragon. I would have to verify. But because of that, the targets in order to do this are very, very limited, so worrying about a player overdoing it or abusing this effect won't really come up just because of how limited the choices are for the discard effect. And it's only summoning Blue Eyes White Dragon, so I feel like because of that, it's probably fine. But let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are on this card. I personally love it. I think it's really cool and a lot more interesting than just Lord of Dragons. Next card up is Assault Wyvern, and this is another really cool choice that I ended up making for Kaiba. So if you're unfamiliar, this is another card that Kaiba's been seen playing in the anime. More specifically, he played it in the Different Side of Dimensions movie, and this card's awesome. So the main reasons I chose this card for the deck is, for one, it's a card that we've already seen Kaiba use in the anime. For two, it's a large static dragon light monster, so it's in theme with Kaiba again. And finally, it gives you another way of bringing out Blue Eyes White Dragon from either your hand or graveyard in a lot more balanced way, because it actively has to destroy a monster on field in order to summon that Blue Eyes. So I feel like because of that, that all kind of like amalgamates into like a really cool and interesting card for Kaiba's deck in order to bring out that Blue Eyes. As you can see, a lot of the cards that I've been choosing for this deck are theming around that Blue Eyes White Dragon. We want to get this card either into the graveyard or back onto the field. So I think this fits really, really well. Next up, we have Keeper of Dragon Magic. So this is an out there choice that I ended up making, and this card it's a really cool card. You'll see. So essentially, what does this card do? So what this card does is that on summon, it adds you a polymerization from your deck to your hand. So that's really, really cool. Being able to get access to poly is really helpful, especially in this deck because we're trying to fusion summon. But secondly, another thing that this card does is that it's able to reveal a monster in the extra deck, and that it's able to special summon one of the materials from the graveyard, but it summons it in face down defense position. Again, I keep on mentioning this, but one of the main themes of this deck is bringing that Blue Eyes either on field or sending it to the graveyard. And I feel like as a whole, this card fits really well for the deck. It's another card that kind of looks like something Kaiba would have played in the anime, and I don't know, I feel like it's in theme with the power level of SpeedDuels currently. So I really, really like this choice. Surprisingly enough, the next card up, Keeper of Shrine, might be a bit too strong though, comparatively. So what this card does, it essentially treats itself as a double tribute for the summon of a dragon type monster. That seems fine. However, the powerful effect of it comes in the graveyard. So essentially, if your opponent outs your Blue Eyes, it's able to special summon itself back to the field and add that Blue Eyes White Dragon back to your hand. Essentially, on the crackback, you're able to tribute it off again to normal summon that Blue Eyes onto the field once again. That level of recursion is really, really strong and very annoying, but I feel like as a whole, it should be okay, just because it is just a double tribute monster, but the effect and recursion is really, really annoying. I could either take it or leave it with this card. We could easily replace it with something else. I like it a lot. I think it's cool, very in theme for the deck. And again, Blue Eyes White Dragon is one of the main things we want to get established for this deck. Last card up is Vanguard of Dragon. We've seen this card be associated with Kaiba in the past in SpeedDuel product, and again, it's another card that gets Blue Eyes White Dragon in the graveyard, so that's why it's here. And that's pretty much the monster lineup. I like the monster lineup a lot. I think it's really cool, very concise, and it knows what it's trying to do. Now on to the spell lineup. So for the spell cards, go ahead and fix this up. Alright. For the spell cards, we of course have Polymerization because it's a search target for the Keeper of Dragon Magic, and of course we need a way to summon out that Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. But in addition, we also have Dragon's Mirror, and I've been alluding to this the whole time. Dragon's Mirror is one of the cool cards that I ended up adding to this deck because if we can't establish Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field and hand for poly, we can either send it to the graveyard in order to banishing all the materials engraved with this card. And I think that's a really cool duality of this deck, that you can either do either or for the summon of Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. And I think it's really fun and interesting in the way that we can do that. Moving on, we also have a Wing Beat of a Giant Dragon. It's a card that I'm surprised we've never actually gotten into the game because the effect is surprisingly really tame, all things considered. Being able to return a level 5 or higher dragon type monster to destroy all spell trap cards on the field seems like a fair trade-off. And again, this is also another card that we've seen Kaiba use in the anime, so it just feels really in theme, and I like this a lot as the dedicated backward destruction for the deck. Next up is Dragon Shrine, and this one is a little more risky too, just because this card essentially is Foolish Burial, but what if it was on crack, essentially? Because you're able to send a dragon type monster to the graveyard, but if you sent a vanilla, you're able to send another one from the deck to the grave. And I absolutely love this for this deck specifically because so you can send Blue Eyes White Dragon initially to then send another one to the grave, or you can send Blue Eyes White Dragon plus the stone in order to get that Blue Eyes to hand. I feel like that level of recursion is really strong, and as far as like Foolish Burial cards go, I think this one's okay in our format just because there isn't that much combo potential with sending a vanilla to the graveyard, especially not right now. But the main issue with this card is the fact that it's another Foolish Burial card in the game, and there is some really good targets for dragons to send to the graveyard. So I can definitely see an argument why this card might be too strong, but I feel like where we are currently in the game, it's okay. Alright then, last spell up is Majesty with Eyes of Blue. And this is another really cool support pieces that we've seen get introduced for Kaiba. So what it essentially does, it allows you to send a Blue Eyes monster from your hand or deck to the grave in order to prevent one monster your opponent controls from being able to attack in general while it's face up on the field. And I feel like that's fine because we already have cards in the game that allow you to do that in a more oppressive way, hence a card like Nightmare Wheel. And that's pretty much the spell card lineup. I think it's really cool. Again, we are very honed in on what the deck's trying to do, and again, these cards feel really powerful for a character like Kaiba, and I feel like that's very much fitting. So alright, now let's move on to the trap card lineup. So first card up is Final Attack Orders, and as you can see, this deck is very aggressive because, well, it's Kaiba and he is a very aggressive duelist. And I like this card a lot too, because for one, it's a card that Kaiba plays in the anime, for two, it's a card that already exists in the game, and for three, it's, as I said, it's an aggressive deck, so we want to be able to be aggressive and enter the battle phase and force your opponent to attack you, so this card's great. Let's continue talking about the cards that are already in the game. Next card up is Dragon's Rage, another card that we've seen Kaiba use in the anime, and again, deck's aggressive, being able to give all your dragons piercing seems very much in tune with this deck. Last card that's already in the game up is Dragon's Rebirth. I believe it was given to Kaiba in one of his strategies too, if I'm not mistaken. But again, it's another way of bringing out that Blue Eyes White Dragon onto the field. It just seems very in tune with the strategy. Alright then, on to the last two cards, and the first one being Attack Guiding Armor. And this card's really cool, because it's a card that we've seen Kaiba use in the anime, so it's very fitting for this strategy. But also, the effect is actually not that bad. Essentially, when you take into consideration that this is essentially just Sakuretsu armor, meaning that in a hypothetical sense, if this card were to be printed, it would have to be put to 3, just like Saku, just because it's another replacement for it. But the effects aren't that bad. So it's whenever you activate it, you're either able to destroy the monster that attacked, or you're able to target another monster on the field, to make that the new attack target. So It's what if Sakuretsu Armor and Magical Arm Shield had a baby and created a card, and that's that right here. And because of that very reason, I feel like since we already have cards in the game that behave similar to it, being able to introduce this one wouldn't be too bad. Last card up is Dragon Carnation. This is a cool card because it allows us to recurse our monsters back to our hand, because we're going to be banishing a lot, either from the effect of Dragon's Rebirth or the effect of the Dragon's Mirror. Being able to recover those Blights White Dragons back to our hand, or whatever dragon we banish for the effect of Dragon's Rebirth, is really neat. And it kind of just really ties the whole deck together really, really nicely. And that's pretty much the main deck. I like this a lot. I had a ton of fun making this deck for Kaiba. I feel like it's very honed in on what it's trying to do, as I said. It's very to the point, very Kaiba heavy with the cards that I chose. They feel really in theme for what he's trying to do. And the deck is quite consistent as to what it's trying to accomplish in summoning that Blois Ultimate Dragon, which was the whole goal the whole time I made this strategy. But in the comment section below, give me your thoughts. Do you like this rendition of Kaiba? Do you like what I did? What changes would you make? What cards would you like to have seen instead? I did consider adding cards like Sagi the Clown and maybe like Deck Devastation Virus, but I don't know. I kind of just wanted Kaiba to have a Blois deck instead. But again, in the comment section below, give me all your thoughts. But guys, if you did end up enjoying today's video, then a like would be very much appreciated. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I am trying to get this channel to 500 subscribers, and any support you guys can give me is very much appreciated. But as always guys, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.